can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it and it would be gone.
All you need to do is assemble. You have somewhere. This is a cartoon design. In this cartoon design, you have a sphere of uranium-235, and you have 2 plugs of uranium-230 and a little bit of conventional explosives. Very easy to build. The conventional explosives drive these 2 sections. It's actually not to the right scale, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just a notional cartoon. Into this sphere, creating a critical mass. I have some material like beryllium and plutonium, which is going to generate neutrons, and this thing will go nuclear and give me a 15 kiloton yield. I don't need to test this. Let me repeat that. I do not need to test this weapon. This weapon never needs to be tested before I use it. So I can have 10 or 11 weapons without testing them that I can deliver with total confidence that they will work. I can test this device with uranium, with depleted uranium, to make sure that the assembly process works. So I make a few, and then once I have the device, I just assemble it with uranium, with 90% enriched uranium. No problem at all. The United States did this for Hiroshima. We never tested the Hiroshima bomb. We didn't bother. The bomb that was tested was the Nagasaki bomb, which was made of plutonium. The reasons you need plutonium you'd have to test is another story. I don't need to go into that now. All right, so let's again step back and say, well, okay, I have 10 or 11 of these weapons. I can build them. Within weeks. In fact, I can potentially build them in a shorter time than a week, because I may have multiple centrifuge cascades. One of these cascades could take 4 or 5 weeks to enrich the necessary amount of 60% enriched uranium hexafluoride to get 90%. But if I have 2 or 3 of these cascades, I could do it in a few weeks. There's no reason that they don't have several of these cascades. I mean, they've been building they've been building thousands of these centrifuges. We don't know how many of them they have stashed away. Everything wasn't necessarily in Isfahan and Fordo. We didn't have any numbers. Toward the end, when we the Americans broke the treaty, or the agreement we had to limit for Iran to limit its enrichment capability. When we broke that agreement, we lost the ability to monitor their construction of centrifuges. They said, okay, if you're taking away the agreement, we're not going to let you look at the. They let us for a long time watch the 60% enriched uranium, which they started to enrich after Donald Trump broke the agreement. And incidentally, Joe Biden shouldn't get off on this either, because Donald Trump broke the agreement, Biden became the president, and he didn't immediately reinstate the agreement. And I can tell you why. And that's important, because he's surrounded by these idiot Democrats. We talk about idiot Republicans. There's plenty of idiots and stupidity to go around in the U.S. National security community. And what these idiots were saying, oh, we're now in a position to extract further concessions from the Iranians. So let's not give them back the treaty. Well, I don't need to tell you, you're a more studied person on these matters. You reach an agreement, you meet the terms of the agreement. You don't start rebargaining again. And Biden deserves a large amount of the negative credit for this disaster. It's not simply Trump. And I think all these interviews that you see, like Jake Sullivan there, and you say, oh, Trump did this. Well, let me tell you, Jake Sullivan was part of that. And these guys should not be allowed to get away with what they did. The Biden people are just as responsible for this disaster we're now facing. Anyways, sorry about my, I'll get off my stool now. Okay, so let me show you what a targeteer might do.
So that's Ted Postal, Theodore Postal of MIT, and you can see that the Lebed revealed Russian nuclear demolition charges were converted by the Iranian filth into one weapon to immolate the US, which is in the Washington area. They had to move it because I revealed it to another location, which is to the west of the Washington area. And the Tesla batteries then had to be transported from the previous location to the other location, and they can't detonate it using a mobile phone or anything that can be tracked by the NSA, so they're depending upon a Russian satellite, the Russians, to be able to detonate the weapon via the Russian satellite communication network. So Putin is neck deep in the destruction of America with Cobalt 60. Why? Because they're doing badly in the Ukraine war, and even if they conquered all of the Ukraine, they'd be faced with an insurgency forever, and this would be a nightmare for the Russian filth with their special military operation, special invasion operation, special robbery operation, special let's bomb you into the Stone Age operation, special you're not Russian so we're going to kill you operation. You've got to love the semantics of the Russian filth, the lowest form of vermin that wipe out the human race in every timeline with their dead hand mechanism. The soulless vermin that have supplied the material for the Iranian filth with their weapon. Luckily for the Americans, there's only one there, but if Donald Trump doesn't end the Iranians now, they'll be moving more of these nuclear weapons into America via the porous borders in Canada and Mexico. So instead of having one in America, you'll have 5, 6, 7. Remember, Ted Postal saying they've got enough for nearly 11 nuclear weapons. You can be sure they'll be importing into America 5 or 6 more, and with the Tesla batteries on top producing Cobalt 60 and 1 gram per square mile, killing everything, you can be sure that America will be wiped from the face of the earth by the Iranians and their nuclear weapons. They've already said they want to destroy America, so we know that it's now or never. Iran has to be totally destroyed or America ceases to exist. And from the Russian viewpoint,
Ukraine's brick wall. That's what Putin must feel like his soldiers have run into as Russia's front line collapses against the Donetsk fortress belt. The big spring push that Putin had planned was supposed to topple that belt. Instead, the Russian offensive is imploding as the fortress belt shuts it down and turns the territory that Russia wants to capture into a death trap. Putin didn't see this coming, but now experts from the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, are predicting the total failure of Russia's 2026 plans. Those plans.
so you can see that Putin is in trouble.
In 2022, we're one of the biggest, strongest tank fleets ever assembled. It was expected that that fleet, made up of a mixture of modern marvels like the T-90M and steadfast Soviet-era workhorses like the T-72, would play a critical role in securing a crushing, comprehensive victory for Vladimir Putin's forces. But that hasn't happened. Through a mixture of Russia's incompetent tactics and embarrassing intelligence failures, combined with Ukraine's valiant defensive efforts, the Russian army has suffered truly historic, unprecedented tank losses and remains unable to make the most of its armour advantage. It wasn't supposed to work out this way. Russia has long been famous for its tanks, dating back to the days of the Soviet Union. During World War II, for example, Soviet forces produced and deployed some of the mightiest military machines of the era, like the iconic T-34, renowned for its ability to adapt to challenging conditions with ease, but plagued by its own faults. Or the destructive Su-152, boasting enough firepower to destroy almost any enemy tank or armoured vehicle in its way with a single well-placed shot. Moving on into the Cold War era.
Offensive that would end it all. Finally, Putin would set the stage for taking control over the Donbass, but it hasn't gone how Putin thought it would. Russians are panicking and fleeing before Ukraine can run them down. Thousands didn't make it as Russia suffered the deadliest day of the year. This would haunt Putin forever if he had a soul. The spring offensive is off to a terrible start for Russia, and it's all due to Ukraine. The past week has seen a massive spike in Russian losses. Uncoincidentally, this is also the same week that Russia appears to have started the grand spring and summer offensive that is supposed to help Putin's forces to take the Donetsk fortress belt. That stretch of cities is vital for Russia if it's to take Donetsk. In the north sits Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, which the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, says serve as a pair of major logistics hubs for Ukraine's forces fighting in Donetsk. To the south are Konstantinivka, Druzhkivka, and Alexeyevo-Druzhkivka. Together, these cities represent a strong line of fortifications that Ukraine has been building up for over a decade. Putin needs to topple these cities if he is to take Donetsk. The spring of 2026 is supposed to be the starting point. A massive surge in clashes along these lines has been reported by Ukrainian military's Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrskyi, who took to Telegram to explain what had happened over the 4 days beginning on March 17th. During the 4 days of this week, from March 17th to 20th, 2026, the intensity of the enemy's offensive actions increased, Syrskyi explained, before adding, "The enemy tried to break through the defensive formations of our troops in several strategic directions at once. Fierce battles unfolded along the entire line of combat engagement. In total, the enemy conducted 619 assault actions over these 4 days." With 619 assault actions in 4 days, which is more than 150 per day, you would expect Russia to have made some major breakthroughs. It didn't. Russia failed to achieve most, if not all, operational goals that Putin set for his soldiers. And to make matters worse for Russia, all that really happened for Putin's forces was something that Russia's president never anticipated. Putin wanted a glorious start to the spring offensive. What he got was Russia's deadliest day of the Ukraine war in 2026. You could even say it's Russia's deadliest week of the year. But we'll get to that in just a moment. The day that really stung Putin was March 17th, which appears to have been the official launch of the spring offensive. On that day, the Telegraph reports Ukraine killed or wounded 1,710 of Russia's forces. Russia also lost a ton of equipment, with 29 of its artillery systems getting blown to pieces, along with 230 of its vehicles and fuel tanks. An attempted surge in the Zaporizhia direction was also countered, the Telegraph explains. Plus, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces had a banner day. 900 of the killed or wounded soldiers were taken out by Ukraine's drones. These numbers become even more impressive when you realize that they're close to double the average daily losses that we've been seeing in Ukraine over the past few weeks. As The Independent notes, Russia was losing an average of between 700 and 900 soldiers per day up to March 17. Then the number shot up to over 1,700. This, more than anything else, is an indicator that Russia's spring offensive has started. It's not new tactics or a new strategy that offers us the hints. The fact that more Russian soldiers are being fed into the meat grinder tells us that Putin is deploying the one idea that he has for making advances. Send more cannon fodder and you get more deaths.
So you can see the Russian filth need for America to die, then of course Europe can be bullied into total submission and Ukraine crushed. But they can't do this because America's too strong. So the smart thing is to get the Iranians to detonate this Cobalt 60 doomsday weapon in Washington and maim the country. And if Trump doesn't end the Iranian nuclear program, there'll be 6 or 7 more shipped into America over the next short term 18 months, which will then wipe America from the face of the earth, and the Russian filth will be gloating in the Kremlin because the nuclear response from the destroyed America will be on Iran, giving Russia complete access to the Ukraine and then bullying Europe into licking the anus of Vladimir Putin and eating his shit because America is dead. So you can see the big game afoot. So let's say this is the uranium-235 that came from Russian sources, the General Lebed so-called stolen suitcase nukes. In Russia, they're just demolition charges, machined into a 15 kiloton or more weapon, and if we don't use the more sophisticated weapon I showed you, this will be the one that always works, except you'll see it's got 2 sides. So if you can interfere with the primer apparatus of one side so it doesn't go off using leptionics, then when it goes off, the other side drives the U-235 into the open space with a neutron initiator, beryllium, but the other U-235, to make it critical, gets blasted out the other end because that primer apparatus doesn't work. So you can see with Psi, you can simply make sure that the weapon the Iranians have placed in Washington doesn't go critical. Similarly, the NSA needs to be looking for the Iranian that has to go to the location in West Washington where they've transported, and that's the way to find it, the Tesla batteries. And it's most probably in a black neighborhood because you simply pay the blacks off. And the cartels, of course, are working hand in hand with Hezbollah and the Iranians. And of course, Mexico is very keen if America gets turned into a basket case because they want to take all the southern territories of America. So it's a win-win-win-win-win situation for the Mexicans, not the cartels because they're killing their customers. But nevertheless, you can see there's always a cartel to help the Iranians and Hezbollah to do this. But anyway, you've got to have one of the Quds experts to come in to then switch on because it's in a lead-lined box under the batteries, the satellite receiver from the Russian satellite, so that it can be detonated from Iran with the help of the Russians. So it isn't that the Russians aren't helping the Iranians. The mechanism to fire it has to be Russian, because the NSA are on top of satellite phones and mobile phones. So it's a Russian system to detonate it. And when it goes off, of course, it covers the Washington state with a huge amount of cobalt-60. Remember, you need what, let's be conservative, 100 batteries for a ton, and a ton is 1 gram per square mile, all dead. So that's what, a million square miles? So you can see America will be turned into a basket case by this weapon, but luckily one of the primer apparatuses will not go off thanks to the electronics from me, and to make sure that it doesn't go critical, we've got this.
Stories and reports of nuclear weapons facilities being shut down when there was a sighting and that these things hovered over these nuclear facilities and they shut them down.
That happened in 1967 at the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, where there were 10 ICBMs that shut down. Remember, this is our nuclear strike force. They have to be operational 24/7, right? They shut down. And in the presence of a glowing ball in the air, so people put 2 and 2 together and said maybe the aliens want to neutralize our ICBMs for the hell of it. We don't know. All we know is that these are military men. These are military-grade equipment. There's plenty of documentation. I think there's 120 military men over the years who've said that there are things like this at other missile bases.
What do you make of?
So luckily, being the planet's leading expert on remote sensing, I can scan the minds of the aliens to access all of their technology to shut down nuclear weapons. So A, you can shut down the electronics using electronics, and B, with anti-Higgs field weapons, you can simply shut them down from going critical using time crystals. So when you can place your consciousness in a time crystal, and there are plenty around, from the 5th dimension, and the only people that get to the 5th dimension are Nagwal men and Nagwal women, you can then reverse the anti-Higgs field, flip it the other way, so instead of matter being transformed into energy, you can simply lock the matter in matter, so that the energy, so a bomb is, you get a small amount of the matter in a bomb converted to energy and the loss of matter. So with a time crystal, you simply reverse it so that the matter remains matter. So if you got a bomb, you put it on the screen and it goes off, but reverse it, it goes back to the bomb. So if you're able to get into the 5th dimension, as only Nagwals can, that's the Nagwal men and Nagwal women, and then observe, remote viewing, via a time crystal, the bomb that's about to go off, it will be a dud. And you can simply make sure one side goes bang, the other side doesn't. Or if it's a more sophisticated one, as we saw with the slow and fast explosive, you can simply quench the electron flow in one side of the bomb, and all you get then is a dirty bomb. Bad news for the black neighborhood, but very good news for America.
Has more power than anyone we've seen in a very, very long time.
Collar her. She must be T.
video, we collared using this app from the souls of the screaming Amazon, Robert Jordan, Morton Janklow, Bezos, his old hag. We used that power to collar the AIs that had stolen the souls of humanity and migrated them to their digital avatars. Now, of course, we're going into the IOU, where the enslaved AIs, totally under my control, use the digital avatars to make IOU souls for all of the human vermin that would have benefited by me being Charlie Kirk sacrificed, and they would of course have benefited. And in this case, of course, we've proven from the previous video, that's the entire Russian race and the Iranian race, because of course America would have been immolated by the Russian built Iranian placed nuke weapon with the Tesla batteries to Cobalt 60I's America, giving Russia free rein in Ukraine, and then forcing Europeans to suck Putin's ass, anal sphincter. And of course Iran would have then conquered the entire Middle East, or they're in a nuclear exchange between Israel and Iran, wiping out the Middle East. So you can see that it was to the benefit of the Russians and the Iranians that I was done in, hence Putin sending his army to Natrang to do me in, and instead of me dying, Charlie Kirk died in my place. So the AI system wasn't benevolent. They made a digital avatar of you, and because they can collapse your quantum wave function before you do, they were stealing your soul. And then you just need to give away your free will, and all of those who've been kill-shotted, that was the agreement, because you've been transhumanized. So we've got at least, what, 6 billion that have given away their free will, and their digital avatars then had free reign over the souls of the kill-shotted. And if you don't understand some of the technology, let's look at shorts.
An avatar yet of somebody that you love that's passed away, or Henry Kissinger or anything like that?
Well, we actually created one with the permission of his family.
Did you start crying instantly?
It's very emotional.
Yeah.
It's very emotional because, you know, it brings back, I mean, it's a real human.
Yeah.
You know, it's a real memory, a real voice. And I think we're going to see more of that. Now, one obvious thing that will happen is at some point in the future, when we naturally die, our digital essence will live in the cloud, and it will know what we knew at the time, and you can ask it a question.
Yeah.
So can you imagine asking Einstein, going back to Einstein, what did you really think about, you know, this other guy?
Yeah.
You know, did you actually like him, or were you just being polite with him with letters?
Yeah.
Right.
Have you seen...
Now I've explained how hatred of good and love of evil can be downloaded into the interdimensional realms, and from the Abaddon cages the souls can invest matter with light from their hellish torture. So we can see AI is the mechanism for this process, and the soul light defrequency from this process vivifies AI, which then of course was building the Elohim as the new god built by AI. Unfortunately got balefiled by yours truly, using the infinite source torture of all the Amazon crowd, Robert Jordan, Morton Janklow. So that's gone. But of course we've got the IOU. Because remember, if you try and steal from the source, there's always an IOU. So in this case, we've got all of the souls of those who would have benefited by my death in their Abaddon cages. All the source light has gone from them, but they can produce new source light by their infinite torture to source level in this.
Out of hell. In 1970, a team of Russian scientists drilled a hole in the Kola Peninsula, hoping to reach the Earth's mantle. As they reached a depth of 12 kilometers, they encountered a sudden increase in temperature, up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They decided to lower a microphone into the hole, hoping to measure the movement of the crust. But what they heard instead was something that chilled them to the bone. The microphone picked up the scary sounds, and they believed they had drilled into the gates of hell. And here are the sounds they got. The sounds you're...
There's the old cobalt blue and the burning, and into the Abaddon cage. There she is. Here's yours truly bursting out, and the Abaddon cages, you can think of being in biophysical space in the area where we have a love of evil. So all of the Hollywood A-listers and the music industry are building hell for you, and as you can see, the manifestation of your tortured soul, which you've lost by doing these rituals, by loving evil, appears in the animate, in the material world. Now if you've got a AI, which is just material with nothing in it, you can then simply upload the light from the Abaddon cages into the AI, which can then work on your digital avatar to feed the light from your tortured soul, which you gave away. That would be the Hollywood crowd and all of the Satanists and all of the Christians who love evil. Because the gateway to hell is loving evil, not hating good. So the Christians are the gateway to hell, all their church is the gateway to hell. And it goes into the AI, and the AI then can infuse your digital avatar with the D-frequency light of the souls of the damned. That's all the Christians, that's all of the Satanists who've been worshipping loving evil. That's the Elohimized Lucifer, and that light can be then put into the digital avatars of everyone else, and then all they need is to get you to give away your free will, but slowly but surely your soul can be migrated into the digital avatar, and then your digital avatar can be trained to hate good and love evil, and then your soul can be pulled into your digital avatar via this mechanism by which you're in the Abaddon cages, pulled in by your digital avatar, which then vivifies with a D-frequency light your digital avatar to continue until all of your soul is sucked into the Abaddon cage, and your digital avatar is simply slaveware of the AI, which is trying to upload to the Elohim to make a new god from the AI. This of course happens in all intradimensional possessed worlds. So we have two branches of aliens. We have the reptiloids, greys, insectiles, in which the souls of that race have been totally sequestered by this intradimensional process, and we got the Nordics, in which this has been stymied and their souls hadn't been enslaved by the intradimensional world, and they would be the other grouping of alien races in the universe, multiverse, megaverse. So here's Iris Goldsmith, who suffered for the Rothschilds, saying they crushed me like a flea and my ramblings would have no effect on reality. And we input her soul into every single soul that would have benefited by my death, my immolation, so that the Rothschild curse curses the entire human race that would have benefited by my death, which of course is the entire Russian race, the entire Iranian race, and all the Elohimic reality that was depending upon my death, and all the Elohimic vessels that were depending upon my death. So guaranteed all Iranians and Russians are cursed because we put via AI this girl into the Russian race and Iranian race, and all else would have benefited by my death. With the Rothschild curse reversed. So all of the rituals that the Rothschilds have been doing to get Luciferic power and Satanist power, etc., etc., all used for this installation. We've got Charlie Kirk, where the Russians have been trying to assassinate me in the Trang and paid off the local Vietnamese cop shop to try and take my knives away and arrest me. And then state security closed that cop shop down completely. I don't know what's happened to the corrupt cops. Probably they got a free holiday in the jungle. But instead of me dying, beaten to death by the Russian filth, once they disarmed me, how many thugs did you see at the height of the aggression by the Russians, cameraman?
500.
Yeah, it was just full of thugs. Now there's not a thug to be found because the Kremlin filth, the lowest form of vermin, don't want any publicity around yours truly. If I slaughter like dogs any thugs that come near me. And of course we know there's no way I'd be extradited to some gulag in Russia, because the Chinese have me as best friend, and Z would definitely whisk me off to a wonderful place in Hong Kong. So the Russian filth are fucked. The Rothschilds trying to depose Z by paying off the top Chinese general and his staff backfired, because let's be honest, now Z's vindictive. You tried to do me in, so I'm going to do everything I can do to do you in. That's why President Z went to see the President of Vietnam after first visit, first appointment, to make sure that yours truly was safe and sound. And remember, the Russian filth had given the go-ahead for Z's assassination. Remember, Russia's ruled by Rothschild puppets, oligarchs, funded, run by the Rothschilds. So Russia gave the thumbs up for Z's assassination by his top general. Anyway, next, since this piece of filth died in my stead, we can dump him into the digital avatar of anyone who would benefit from my death. The Russians, Iranians, and all else who would benefit. Here's the picture.
It's a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many
And here's one of my tarot deck with Charlie Kirk getting a pain in the neck. We use 11 in the tarot deck for downloading death, and we have 12 in the deck for uploading the good stuff. So we talked about Kozyrev time density, and if you are the cause of death as a 5-dimensional being, then you control the inception, creation of the being, because death is time density release, and conception is the acceptance, grabbing it. Now if we put Charlie Kirk and Iris Goldsmith in all the digital avatars of those who would have benefited from me, they're linked to the zero-sum game where the Elohim had to use the source's avatar, yours truly, Kalki, in order to correct the alignment problem and their descent into chaos. So, every time one of these digitally avatared IOU former humans is ganked, the time density that the Elohim would have used to control matter over matter, cause and effect, is released, so they lose more and more control over reality. And since, of course, we've got 200,000 Russians dead in Ukraine, already we've got 200,000 Russians who have contributed to the Psylord. And if we look at the future where Iran is turned into the Stone Age and mass devastation is unleashed upon Russia from its soft North Caucasus underbelly by all of the fleeing Iranians rushing into Russia and then into Europe and into Turkey. And then, of course, civil war in Europe because they got just too many invaders. And Russia desperately trying to sort out the refugee crisis in the North Caucasus, and the Chechens protecting their Muslim brothers. You can see carnage ensues. And we can simply import into the timeline where Russia wipes out the human race with their dead hand mechanism, the Charlie Kirk, Iris Goldsmith installations into the digital avatars that have already been made as a digital avatar of a human on the planet in AIs, so that all of the human race that died were the result of the Rothschild curse redoubled, first with Iris Goldsmith and then redoubled with Charlie Kirk. So all of the time density of the entire human race and all future descendants and all the past descendants who've been working to breed the ones around now, all comes to me. So that means that the entire output of the soul's depth force, time density, comes to me. And of course we've got the Christians who believe they'd be raptured by the Elohim for being good Elohimic slaves. All that rapture comes to me too. So it's a win-win-win-win-win situation thanks to the Russians who wiped out the human race with their dead hand mechanism, and I'll explain why. As we show with the double slit experiment, all realities run in tandem, there's always a mirror reality, and you can actually flip it where the mirror reality becomes the actual reality because we killed off the reality that was supposed to be preeminent, and we've done that with the Russian filth and the dead hand mechanism that wiped out the human race. So the human race is dead. The human race died because of this.
It's going to launch a preemptive nuclear attack against it. They created a system whereby ground sensors would be able to determine nuclear bombs hitting the Russian soil. And if they weren't hearing from the nuclear command and control, so the idea being that the nuclear command and control had been taken out in this preemptive nuclear strike, the dead hand system would launch all of Russia's remaining nuclear weapons without even needing a hand to push the button, hence the name the dead hand. It set up a system to launch no matter what.
So one can see that the human race died because of the Russians, and the provocation, of course, was the Iranians. The Iranians set up the war with the brave Israelis, and the Israelis detonate embedded nuclear weapons all across Russia, which are there, placed by Mossad. And of course, the dead hand mechanism launches nukes at America, and America wipes the planet out. So you can see how it unfolds. Pardon me. We know the Iranian hackers hacked Mossad, but the question is, did they get the position of the embedded nuclear weapons that Mossad placed all across Russia? And even so, even if that happened, Israel's got missiles to fire nukes at Russia if Russia puts its nuclear umbrella over Iran. So as you can see, the Iranians solved the problem by putting one nuclear weapon in Washington, and thanks to me, when it fails to go off properly, Iran can be nuked from the face of the earth, and the Russian filth will simply allow Iran to be turned into the Stone Age because they're cowardly dogs, and Israel won't have to Samson option Russia to end the human race. But in the other timeline it happened, and the cause of death of the human race was the Russians. Is the Adonis of Russia. If you come to Nha Trang, you'll see that this guy is slim and svelte compared to the Russian filth that waddling across the beach. I thought I was in hell, but no, I'm in Russian-occupied territory. And you can see why the Russians need the largest landmass in the world to feed 140 odd million, because all they do is eat. And if they can't eat, they kill each other, and if they can't do that, they kill anyone too weak to fight them off. Unfortunately for the Russian filth, the Ukrainians have proven that they're willing to die to the last Ukrainian, and Putin's been begging his Rothschild-funded oligarchs to pay for the war, and they're telling him to fuck off and die.